Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some more twin Spright action. Of course, want to follow up on this deck, especially since we have our lovely alt art Evil Twins. Such good artwork. Love to see it. But, yeah, I think that this build... It's funny because I did rebuild it from scratch, but I actually think I ended up with the exact same list that I last used on the channel. Which was the one where we updated our list to include Meow Mine to try it out. Meow Mine, how do I feel about this card? You know, I've played with it in a couple of Spright variants now. Pretty much ever since I pulled this Royal, I've been jamming into like every single Spright deck. So, well, just about. I don't think... Actually, was it in our White Forest build? I don't think it was. But anyway. And at the end of the day... I do have to say that I kind of feel like second red and carrot are just better. Not necessarily by a lot, like this card is not bad by any means, but as an extender, I just feel like the additional copies of red and carrot are going to offer you more for your end board, more bang for your buck. Like the bounce effect is... It's nice when it goes off, but I gotta level with y'all. In my experience, this bounce effect, like, almost never goes off. In theory, sure, yeah, you make an IP, you send it during your opponent's turn, bada bing, bada boom, you get to bounce a monster. But, honestly, if you've already set up to that point and you're going IP into SP, you probably don't need this bounce anyway. Like, you're already gonna banish something with SP, plus you'll have the additional SP banish, right? Like... In my experience, there really aren't that many situations in which your opponent has two cards on the field, one of which you want to bounce and one of which you want to banish, right? That would be the optimal situation to go IP into SP while you have Meow Mine in the graveyard, and it really just doesn't ever come up. Again, I don't think that Meow Mine is a bad card. I really just think that that additional copies of red and carrot offer more utility. I'd probably go for a second carrot before a second red. But, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel when it comes to Meow Mine in the deck. Again, not bad, but not necessarily the best pick. So, yeah, I get asked pretty much every time I post a Spright video, is this the best Spright variant? And when it comes to Twin Spright, I think that what Twin Spright brings to the table over others is consistency more than anything else. Twin Spright has by far the most amount of one-card starters in the form of the Kisakeel and the Leela, as well as the Sunny Stitches to search them, and the secret password to search that. And I'm not even maxing out on Secret Password. I don't think you even need to max out on Secret Password, because that's already 10 starters, plus 3 copies of Spright Starter is 13, which is exceptionally high. Well, not exceptionally high, but it's definitely on the upper end of the spectrum when it comes to current modern decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and the number of one-card starters that they offer for their deck, right? And again, you could even go more. In theory, if you max out on Secret Password, you could have up to 15. I think that would be too many. Because I think at that point you would want to play more hand traps. We're also, I think, playing 13 hand traps, if I remember right. 3 Veiler plus 3C is 6, plus Ash Blossom is 9, plus Imperm is 12, yeah, plus Nib is 13. So 13 starters, 13 hand traps is a really good spot for a Master Duel deck to be. So why isn't this the best Spright variant then? Well, what it makes up for inconsistency, it does actually end up lacking a little bit in power. Your average one-card inboard is pretty much just going to be Elf and one of your Evil Twins, which is not bad. I mean, that's also in addition to red/carrot, by the way, which isn't bad, but it's like, that's not really that robust of an inboard. So, again, consistency, power, and the balancing of them, you often have to weigh these factors when it comes to deciding which variant of pretty much any given deck, not just Spright, to play. But that is especially true of Spright. So, again, yeah, you have a lot of ways to get to your end board with a deck like this, but compared to like an Adventure Spright end board, that board is not going to be nearly as impactful. Well, relatively speaking. One way in which you can sort of show up the difference is with the use of Nightmare Griffin. I always forget to include this card in Twin Spright, because I gotta level with you. While a solid option for the end board, it doesn't really come up that often. Nightmare Griffin, in my experience, in order to reliably end on it, you need an extender. But if you have an extender, that's most often going to end up being used to play through a hand trap. This is something that I noticed with Master Duel as time goes on, right? That getting hand trapped on your first turn is less of an if and more of a when. And in that regard, extenders are more about, you know, if we get hand trapped, we can use it to continue our regular combo, or we can do something fancy. And more of when we get hand trapped, we're going to need to use this to continue our combo line. So when it comes to these plays that like need an extender in hand, like these like weird combo lines, right? I'm not as optimistic about them. Like, I'm not gonna lie, with this 15th slot in the extra deck, it kind of came down to Nightmare Griffin versus Shadow Mosquito, and I threw in the Griffin to see if it would come up, but it didn't really. And to be fair, neither would have Shadow Mosquito, but Shadow Mosquito does offer a lot of utility as a Zeus pilot, especially going second. And I think if I'm going to pick between this card and Shadow Mosquito for my 15th extra deck slot in Twin Spright, I actually think Shadow Mosquito does just end up being better. It ends up being in a more useful in a greater variety of situations, which might not always be favorable to you. Whereas Nightmare Griffin is only useful in exactly one situation, which is already favorable to you. So, I guess that's a really long way of saying I think Nightmare Griffin is a win more card. I think it is, and I think for that reason I'm probably not going to include it in future builds. This is a conclusion I feel like I've arrived at before, but it's always nice to recycle in cards that you haven't tested in a while, just to really like assess if your feelings on them are still the same, or if maybe the meta is a little more favorable for them, etc., etc. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about the list here. Let's break it down card by card, why not? And then we'll look at some of these games here. So we're on 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Maxi, 3 Live Twin Kissekeel, 3 Live Twin Leela, 1 Live Twin Leela Treat, 1 Live Twin Kissekeel Frost, 2 Spright Blue, 2 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 1 EMP Meow Mine, 3 Ash Blossom of Joy Spring, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Secret Password, 3 Live Twins Sunny Snitch, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Cross-Eye Designator, 3 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Gamma Burst, 3 Infinite Permanents, and that'll round out our main deck. For the extra, we're on 2 Gigantic Spright, 1 Downward Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal Awe, Zeus, Sky Thunder, 1 IEP Masquerena, 2 Evil Twin Kissekeel, 2 Evil Twin Leela, 2 Spright Elf, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Nightmare Griffin, 1 Evil Twins Trouble Sunny, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. That'll do it for our list. Let's see these games. Alright, so this first game is going to be up against Tenpai. We're still in the Duelist Cup, but I just remembered these games because I literally just played these like 15 minutes ago, so... Alright, so our opponent has selected to go second, which does definitely clue me into the fact that they are probably just playing a Tenpai deck. So, opponent is going to activate Maxi in response to Sunny Snitch. I've said this many a time, but this is a horrible spot to activate Maxi. You are just asking to get gammaed or triple tacked. You're walking into every out of Maxi, and you're not even getting a guaranteed draw. This is not an opportunity where you should be using the Maxi. It doesn't really matter because I have the Ash Blossom here, but there were a number of ways to punish this opponent. It's very common. I mean, it's like I say in my hand trap guide. That is the #1 biggest misplay I see in Master Duel when it comes to people playing hand traps. It's a question I get asked a lot is, how do you play hand traps well? And that is the first lesson I will point to is, don't do that. Anyway. Pretty standard turn 1 combo line. I'm going to use our twins to go into Gigantic. Gigantic for blue, blue for Jet. Jet's going to grab Starter because I already have Starter and Gamma Burst. But having 2 Starter is actually not bad anyway, because you could go for Red or Carrot on your turn and then the other on the opponent's turn. Elf is going to bring back the Kissekeel Frost, which will let us go into the Evil Twin Kissekeel. On turn 1, you do need to make Evil Twin Kissekeel first, because you'll use Kissekeel effect to bring back the effect monster Leela, then go into the Link monster Leela, and then when you bring back the Link monster Kissekeel, you can draw a card. If you go second, or in general, if your opponent just has a card on the field you want to destroy, then you would do it the other way around. You would make Evil Twin Leela first to bring back Kissekeel, effect monster, then use Link Kissekeel to bring back Link Leela and pop a card. Hopefully that made sense. So, Gonna start it for Carrot, especially because I already have the Imperm. I'll set Imperm, Starter, and the Gamma Burst before passing to our opponent. You definitely do want to set the Gamma Burst here, by the way, because it does give attack as well as defense. So it doesn't really matter what position you're in, you know, you can definitely get a nice little stat boost there. So our opponent is going to normal summon Shundra and then immediately move to end the main phase. Because I have my toggle set to on, I get to have priority passed to me when my opponent ends the main phase. At that time, I'm going to activate the Kisakeel effect. Our opponent used Call By, but as you can see, no! They targeted the wrong Leela! That's so sad! Rip our opponent, rip Diego. Rip Diego. Even if they had targeted Evil Twin Leela, though, we could have, of course, simply activated Spright Carrot's effect. I actually could have activated Elf's effect, because the way that Leela is worded, it says, if this card is special summoned, you control a Kisakeel monster, you can target a card in the field and destroy it. So, because my opponent controls a monster, I can actually use Elf to bring back Link to. So, even if my opponent had targeted the correct card, I wouldn't have actually had to use Carrot. I could have simply chained Spright Elf here. But since they targeted the wrong monster, rip them, I'm going to allow this to resolve here. I could have, I guess, brought back the Leela, but again, there's not really any reason to. Alright, so we're going to special Leela, Leela F, pop into Shundra. I can also use Elf for blue, use blue to search, and I'll activate Starter here, because why not? I don't really care that I'm 2-locked. I'm not going to be doing any special summoning of non-level 2s this turn. So we have red, we get to add a Jet. So we have Monster Negate, Spell Trap Negate, and we still have the Imperm for an on-board Monster Negate as well. Oh, and Maxi for good measure as well. Yeah, so our opponent's connection quote-unquote failed after that. Targeting the Leela monster is so brutal. Ugh. But again, it wouldn't have mattered either way, because I still would have been able to fully combo out, no sweat at all. But alright, there is our first duel. Let's take a look at the next one here. Alright, this next opponent is going to be up against Brandon, and we're once again losing the coin flip. Of course, since we're not up against Tenpai this time, that does mean that we are going to get to go second. We get to go second! Oh boy! Nah, it's fine. We have plenty of hand traps and a decent amount of board breaking ability as well. If you wanted more board breaking ability, you could definitely play Forbidden Droplet. Would be an excellent addition to this deck. Alright, so we're going to chain the Maxi in response to our opponent's Branded Fusion here, of course. But yeah, the reason Droplet is so good in this deck is because you not only often have a lot of extra cards to spare, and we have a lot of one-card combo lines, but also you can Droplet send Link, Kisakeel, or Leela to bring it back with the other one and then trigger the effect. Opponent's going to go for a Sanctifier under the Maxi. This is the most legitimate use of Sanctifier. Legitimate. What does that even mean, right? This is all entirely my personal opinion. Someone actually pointed out that, like, they said it was hypocritical of me to say that you don't need to ban cards for power reasons, and yet that I still said I wanted to have Sanctifier banned when it's a card that doesn't need to be banned for power reasons, and it's like, yeah, I know. I'm saying I want Sanctifier to be banned, not that it should be. It's funny how people so eagerly conflate those two things, but yeah, playing under Max C and not just dropping a floodgate on your opponent's board, a card that's not intended to be used as a floodgate, is definitely one of the more, again, in my view, quote-unquote, non-scummy ways to use Sanctifier, but that's all entirely my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. You don't need me to tell you to do that. Anyway, this is going to be one of those Spright games where I summon my first level 2 and then just casually fill my board with level 2 monsters. Oh, we definitely want red online to be able to negate Sanctifier / Albaz. And then, of course, I get to, I get to, of course, then use red for Jet and then Jet for Gamma Burst. That is going to be how we OTK before going into the Gigantic. Knew my opponent was going to end up using Sanctifier here because, you know, if I use Gigantic, they are locked into 2s as well as me. Opponent's going to Albaz. We'll use the red here. I could have used the red against Sanctifier, but I was a little worried my opponent might special summon Albaz another way, so this one to get Albaz's once per turn effect, you know, over and done with. So, gonna activate Gigantic. Our opponent chains Branded Retribution, putting back their Sanctifier to negate and destroy my Gigantic. Not a big deal, though. I'm simply going to Starter for Carrot, and I actually already have Lethal on board, thanks to this Gamma Burst. We get to battle... Well, Albaz has 0 defense anyway, so we can battle over, you know, whatever. But I'm going to end up with pretty much exact lethal, 100 over. So even that 400 points of battle damage of the Meow Mine over the Dragon Keeper, like, super duper mattered here. There were also other ways I think I could have found lethal. I didn't have to do it the way that I did here, but this way involved the least amount of thinking. So that's pretty much why I settled on this lethal path. But I'm trying to think, like, if I had gone for a 3200 Gigantic... No, I don't think that would have been enough. Well, Elf already used the effect this turn. Yeah, because Elf already used the effect this turn anyway, so I wouldn't have the extra body. Yeah, so I kind of think I kind of had to do it this way here. But anyway, there's a number of ways you could play that turn out. We have one more game we're going to take a look at here. Let's finish off with that one. All right, this game is going to be against a Horus Tearlament deck, and this one is not going to be, like, as... you'll see what happens here. So, losing yet another coin flip, this opponent is going to go first here. Got this effect Veiler, and that's pretty much our only form of interaction. So, alright, I want to point out some things that I noticed right off the bat as my opponent was playing out their turn. First off, 60 cards plus Horus means it's most likely to be a Tearlament deck. But one thing I also noticed was that my opponent pitched a Maxi as the first card for Massetti. And I was like, wow, okay, so they definitely either have another Maxi in their hand or their hand is really, really good here. They use it again, and this time, as they go to mill their Dumatef, they sent a Tearlament's Grief, and I was like, holy, how good does your hand have to be for those to be the first two things you discard off of Kingsguard? So my assumption is that my opponent has a Rhino Heart in their hand at the very least. Rhino Heart second to Maxi is my guess of what's in my opponent's hand right now, right? As the game is playing out. So I'm thinking about this lone effect Veiler in my hand and the kind of impact it's going to have. I imagine my opponent is probably going to use their 2 Horus monsters to go into a zombie vampire. But I'm thinking to myself, do I actually want to Veiler that? Especially given what they've discarded, and I'm assuming they have a Rhino Heart in their hand. And the answer is actually no. There are some situations where Veiler on zombie... Well, let them summon the zombie vamp here. There are some situations where I would see an argument to Veilering the zombie vamp, particularly if I had a second hand trap. There would be an argument to that, like if I had a second effect Veiler or another Imperm or like an Ash Blossom. There'd be an argument to forcing my opponent to have another play in these 2 cards in hand. But I again am assuming I'm operating under the assumption they do have another play. So I'm thinking I could save Veiler, not even for Rhino Heart at this point, but more for Kikalos. So they milled the Havness, but I noticed they shuffled back the Havness with the Imseti in the yard in order to make Muddy Mud Dragon. Or not Muddy Mud Dragon, just Mud Dragon the Swamp. And at this point, I was like, oh, this sucks. This really sucks, because they're about to normal summon Rhino Heart, which I can't Veiler because of Mud Dragon. Not that I would want to anyway, but then when they summon Kikalos, if I try to Veiler... Well, no. They would need to use Mud Dragon on the same chain link as the Fuser to change its attribute to Dark, and then that would make Kikalos untargetable, which is what I thought they were going to do. And I was like, this sucks. Oh, this Veiler isn't actually good anymore. But then they linked off Mud Dragon with Jet for SP Little Knight, and I was like, huh? I was like, okay. And then they set a card and passed, and I was like, huh? I was like, wait, what? I don't know if we do end up seeing what this face down card is, but I can't imagine what it would need to be better than Tearlament's Grief. I'll go ahead and spoil you that my opponent's last... Actually, we'll just go into my turn. Yeah, you'll see that my opponent's last card is another Maxi. I don't think shotgunning it in this situation was correct at all. But... yeah, what would this face down card need to be that would be better than Tearlament's Grief here? I don't know that I can think of one off the top of my head. I guess I don't know. This is just kind of a situation where I was probably thinking more than my opponent, but I really wanted to walk you through my thought process during their turn to really illustrate why I did not activate Effect Veiler at all at any point during that turn. And then as soon as I cross out their C, they just concede. This is the most baffling game I've played in quite some time. Because I had starter, never mind. I was about to be like, I didn't even have plays. I didn't have another monster to accompany the jet, but we did have the starter. So, but they had Little Knights. So how would I have needed to have played that out? I could have started for blue, because even if they Little Knight, I still get the search. I can add a Spright monster normal at special jet. And then what? Go into Elf, bring something back, go into a 3200 gigantic that can battle over zombie vamp. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have been in a decent spot. I don't know though, like, because I guess I'm trying to think about my plays with the cards I have in hand, and I feel like they're not game ending. I don't know. It was just a very weird and early concede that had followed a rather odd set of plays. Not odd set of plays, necessarily. I just really wonder what that face down card was, and was it really more important than Tearlord's Grief? But anyway, I just find it fun to dissect turns like that sometimes. Hopefully you do too. But either way, that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Thanks for listening to me yap and watching. Let's go ahead and just move now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up, and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.